Blood was everywhere. Metal fragments, broken glass, death hung in the air. Everyone had panicked, waiting for the ambulance to arrive. But the elderly electrician, Robert, walked calmly toward the accident. At that moment, no one noticed why his hands shouldn't be trembling, because these hands had performed miracles on the battlefield 50 years ago. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of courage, hidden past, and unforgettable heroism, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. Robert Chen was 72 years old and had been doing electrical repair work in the Riverside neighborhood for 35 years. Every morning at 7 a.m., he'd leave his house, get into his green pickup truck, and start his daily work. He was a small, modest man, about 5 feet 7 inches, gray-haired, always neatly dressed, and extremely polite. The neighbors loved him dearly. They addressed him as Mr. Chen because he was always humble, never talking about his age. When they called him for electrical work, he always arrived on time, did his job perfectly, charged reasonable fees, and left. Robert's house was very different. It was a small, single-story house with a garden on Riverside Drive. He used his garage as a workshop, storing electrical supplies in an organized manner. But at the back of the garage, there was a hidden compartment that no one saw. Inside, old military supplies, medical equipment, and 50-year-old memories were stored. Robert lived alone. His wife, Linda, had passed away from cancer 5 years ago. They had no children, but the neighborhood was like his family. He would repair elderly Mrs. Henderson's electrical installation for free, install free lighting for the young Johnson couple's baby room, and help neighbors decorate their homes every Christmas. No one questioned Robert's past, because he always seemed so normal, so ordinary, but Robert Chen's story was anything but ordinary. In 1968, Robert Chen was only 18 years old. His family had immigrated from China and ran a small restaurant in California. Robert wanted to go to university, but when his family faced financial difficulties, he decided to serve in the military early. Initially, he was going to train as infantry, but military doctors noticed Robert's extraordinary hand skills and composure. His success in mathematics and physics, fine motor skills, and ability to remain calm under stress made him different. "Chen," said Sergeant Williams at the training camp, "you're going to take combat medic training." Combat medic training was much harder than regular soldier training. Medical knowledge, anatomy, emergency intervention techniques, battlefield surgery, psychological support. Robert underwent intensive training for 6 months. But his real training came in Vietnam. At the beginning of 1969, Robert Chen was sent to Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division. From his first day, he faced the real face of war. Very young soldiers, terrible wounds, death everywhere at every moment. Robert's first patient was a 19-year-old boy named Johnny Peterson. He had lost both legs in a mine explosion. When he was about to die from blood loss, Robert's intervention saved him. "Thank you, Doc," Johnny had whispered. "You saved my life." From that moment on, Robert was known as Doc Chen. For 3 years, he participated in countless operations. He rescued wounded soldiers under enemy fire, performed life-saving operations in temporary operating rooms, provided psychosocial support. Robert's greatest quality was being able to stay calm in every situation. Bomb sounds, gunfire, screams, none of them affected him. His hands never trembled. His voice never rose. Thanks to this quality, he could save lives even in the most difficult situations. In 1971, an event occurred that would change Robert's life. Delta Company was ambushed while conducting reconnaissance in enemy territory. 23 soldiers were seriously wounded. 8 died. Robert, alone, treated the wounded for 15 hours under enemy fire. That night, 23 lives passed through Robert's hands. He saved 19, lost 4. But most importantly, he didn't leave any of them alone. He held each one's hand, gave hope to each one. "Doc Chen, you're an angel," said Sergeant Martinez as Robert treated his gunshot wound. "Without you, we'd all be dead." Robert had just smiled. "I'm here for you. Always." After this incident, Robert was awarded the Bronze Star Medal, but he wanted to refuse the medal. "Why?" asked the commander. "Because I just did my job. I saved my friends. A medal is unnecessary for this." But the medal was given anyway. Robert hid it, never spoke about it to anyone. When he returned from Vietnam in 1972, Robert's world had changed. He was diagnosed with PTSD, but he refused treatment. "I'm fine," he would say. "I just need to return to normal." Returning to normal life wasn't easy. He tried working in military hospitals, but war memories were too vivid. He tried working in civilian hospitals, but bureaucracy and slowness frustrated him. Finally, he started getting involved in electrical work. Thanks to his hand skills, he became successful in this field. While working in a small repair shop, he met Linda. Linda was a nursing teacher at the local high school. "You're very different," Linda had said to him on their first date. "There's healing in your hands." Robert had laughed. "I just do electrical repairs." "No, it's more than that. You heal people." Linda was right. Robert, while doing electrical repairs, also took care of people. He relieved elderly customers' loneliness, listened to worried families' concerns, taught technical subjects to small children. They married in 1976. Robert only briefly mentioned his past Linda. "I fought in Vietnam, received medical training. Now I'm an electrician." Linda didn't ask more, because she could see in Robert's eyes that some memories were too heavy. In 1987, they moved to the Riverside neighborhood. Robert established his own business, Chen Electric Services, small, family business style, but very successful, because Robert wasn't just doing electrical repairs. He was serving people. The neighborhood loved Robert. Always reliable, always honest, always helpful, but no one knew his real past. Robert had a hidden compartment in his garage. Inside, medical supplies from Vietnam were stored. Sterile bandages, suture materials, emergency medications, blood-stopping materials. He had been updating these supplies for 35 years, but had never used them. "Why do you keep these?" Linda had asked one day. "I don't know," Robert had said. "Maybe they'll be needed someday." Linda thought this was a symptom of PTSD, but she didn't pressure Robert, because those supplies gave him a sense of security. In 2018, Linda was diagnosed with cancer. Robert did everything he could for his wife's treatment, but the cancer was too advanced. During Linda's last days, Robert never left her side. He set up a home hospital, provided 24-hour care. Thanks to his medical knowledge, he could reduce Linda's pain. "You're my angel," Linda said in her final days. "I don't know how many people you saved in Vietnam, but you saved me for 40 years. Robert had cried that night. For the first time since Vietnam, he was crying. After Linda passed away, Robert became even more withdrawn, but he focused more on his work. As if to keep Linda's memory alive, he wanted to help more people. March 15th, 2023, Wednesday, Robert was following his normal routine. At 8 a.m., he was going to repair an electrical panel at the Henderson family's house. As he loaded electrical supplies into his pickup, he heard the sound of an accident from a distance. At first, he didn't pay attention, but the sound was getting closer. Ambulance sirens, police sirens, people's screams. Robert got out his pickup. Looked toward where the sounds were coming from. At the intersection of Oak Street and Maple Avenue, there had been a major accident. A red sedan had collided with a school service minibus. Robert's heart raced. School service. There were children inside. "Mr. Chen!" shouted his neighbor, Mrs. Williams. "There's an accident. It looks very bad." Robert hesitated. This wasn't his job. The ambulance would come. Professionals would handle it. But a voice inside said, "Go!" Robert jumped into his pickup, drove toward the accident scene. The accident scene was horrific. The red sedan had crashed into a large tree, completely crushed. Inside were a young woman, 29-year-old Sarah Martinez, and her 3-year-old daughter Emma. The school service had overturned on its side, the windshield completely shattered. When Robert approached the accident, the first thing he saw was blood. Lots of blood. Sarah Martinez had been injured on her head, was unconscious. Little Emma was crying in the back seat of the car, trapped. The school service was in worse condition. Driver Mark Thompson, 55 years old, was stuck to the steering wheel, seriously injured in his left leg. There were 8 children in the car, aged between 6 to 12. Neighbors had gathered, but no one knew what to do. Everyone was waiting for the ambulance. "Where's the ambulance?" someone was shouting. 10 minutes away," came the reply. Robert analyzed the accident scene. His training from 50 years ago kicked in. First, assess the situation, determine priorities, intervene according to life-threatening order. Most critical case, Sarah Martinez. Head trauma, blood loss, loss of consciousness. Second priority, little Emma, in panic, but no apparent injury. Third priority, driver Mark Thompson. Serious injury, but conscious. Others, 8 children, most lightly injured, but in panic. Everyone stepped back. Robert shouted, his voice carrying command authority. Robert took emergency supplies from his pickup, not just electrical supplies, medical supplies he had taken from the hidden compartment in his garage. He approached Sarah Martinez. He checked her pulse, weak but regular. She was breathing but shallow. Deep cut on her skull, active bleeding. We must not lose her until the ambulance arrives, Robert thought. First, he stopped the bleeding. With techniques he had learned 50 years ago, he cleaned the wound on her head, covered it with a sterile cloth, applied pressure. "Who is this man?" someone asked. "Mr. Chen, the electrician," said his neighbor. "Electrician? But he's acting like a doctor." Robert seemed not to hear them. He was completely focused on Sarah. He checked pupil response, stabilized neck vertebrae, monitored shock symptoms. "Are they in good condition?" someone asked anxiously. "Her condition is stabilized," Robert said, his voice confident. "But she needs to be taken to the hospital quickly." After stabilizing Sarah's condition, Robert focused on little Emma. The 3-year-old girl became even more scared when she saw her mother's unconsciousness. "Hello, beautiful," Robert said, softening his voice. "I'm Mr. Chen. I'm going to help you." Emma was still crying, but she relaxed a bit when she heard Robert's calm voice. Robert carefully removed Emma from the car seat. He did a full body examination, spine, neck, arms, and legs. There was no visible injury, but there was a risk of going into shock. "Emma, your mom will be okay," Robert said, hugging the little girl. "The doctors came. They'll make her better." Emma began to calm down in Robert's arms. This was Robert's special talent, calming people, giving confidence. Mark Thompson's condition was more complex. His left leg was stuck to the steering wheel. There was an open fracture, but he was conscious and could speak. "Sir, it hurts a lot," Mark said. "I know," Robert said, "but we'll get you out of here." Robert examined Mark's leg. Compound fracture, open fracture, but there didn't seem to be major artery damage. The biggest risks were infection and shock. Before the firefighters arrived, Robert focused on comforting Mark. Pain management, psychological support, monitoring vital signs. "Are you a doctor?" Mark asked. Robert hesitated. "A long time ago, I received medical training." "Where?" "In Vietnam." Mark's eyes widened. "Are you a veteran?" "Yes, combat medic." "Wow, then I'm in safe hands." The 8 children in the school service were Robert's most difficult case. Because children panic faster than adults, they had difficulty understanding the situation. Robert approached them, spoke in a low voice. "Hello, children. I'm Mr. Chen. I want to make sure you're all safe. The children were crying, scared. Robert examined each one separately. 12-year-old Jake, dislocation in left shoulder, but not dangerous. 10-year-old Sophie, slight bleeding in nose, but no fracture. 8-year-old Marcus, scrape on right knee, needs cleaning. 9-year-old Lily, in shock but no physical injury. 7-year-old David, cut on left hand, needs stitches. 6-year-old Grace, youngest, most scared but no injury. 11-year-old Alex, suspected mild concussion, brain concussion. 10-year-old Mia, sprained left foot but no fracture. Robert took care of each child separately. He assessed not only their physical injuries but also their psychological conditions. "Children, you're all heroes," he said. "You acted very bravely. Now the doctors came. They'll reunite you with your families." When the ambulance arrived, the paramedics were surprised to see Robert's professional intervention. The accident scene was organized. Patients were stabilized. Priorities were determined and reports were prepared. "Who are you?" asked head paramedic Jennifer Walsh. "Robert Chen, electrician," Robert said. "Electrician? But this intervention is professional level. I received medical training a long time ago." Jennifer examined Robert's work. Sarah Martinez's bleeding control was perfect. Emma's psychological support was impressive. Mark's leg was properly immobilized. The children were calm and organized. "Thanks to this intervention, they'll all survive," Jennifer said. "You've done professional work." Robert just nodded. "I just try to help." In the following days, Robert visited the accident victims in the hospital. Sarah Martinez had woken up. She was healthy except for mild concussion. Emma was trying to cope with trauma, but was completely fine physically. Mark Thompson's leg had been operated on. The recovery process would be long, but full recovery was expected. All the children were fine. There were minor injuries, but they had all returned home. "Mr. Chen," Sarah said in the hospital room, "the doctor said if it weren't for your intervention, we could have lost Emma and me." Robert squeezed her hands. "I just did what I could." "No, it's more than that. You're our lifesaver." After the accident, neighbors began to see Robert differently. He wasn't just an electrician anymore. He was someone who saved lives. "Mr. Chun, are you really just an electrician?" asked his neighbor Tom Bradley. Robert smiled. "Yes, I'm an electrician. But a long time ago, I received different training." "What kind of training?" "Military medical training. In Vietnam." Tom's eyes widened. "Were you a combat medic?" "Yes." "How many people did you save?" Robert hesitated. "I don't know the exact number." "Many." This information spread quickly in the neighborhood. The 72-year-old electrician was actually a Vietnam veteran, combat medic. He had saved hundreds of lives. Local news channels heard Robert's story. Reporter Lisa Chong wanted to interview him. "Mr. Chun, you've lived in this neighborhood for 35 years, but no one knew your military background. Why?" Robert thought. "Because the past should stay in the past. I'm an electrician now. This is my life." But during the accident, those skills came into play. "Yes, because it was necessary. People needed help." "Would you talk about your experiences in Vietnam?" Robert's face changed. "That was a long time ago. A different world, a different time. What matters is now, here, being with these people." One of the most touching moments was when the children he saved thanked him. Jake's mother wanted to speak with him privately. "Mr. Chun, Jake talks about you a lot. He says, 'Mr. Chun came like an angel, saved us all.'" Robert's eyes filled with tears. "Jake is a very brave child. They're all very brave. Jake wants to do something for you." Jake came to Robert's side, holding a drawing he had made. In the picture, Robert was drawn saving the children. It said, "My hero, Mr. Chun," on top. "This is for you." Jake said, "Because you're my hero." Robert, alone at home that night, hung Jake's picture on the wall, next to Linda's photograph. Robert's story also reached the Vietnam veteran community. Local VFW Veterans of Foreign Wars. President David Morrison contacted him. Robert, we heard your story. Would you like to join our VFW meetings? Robert had stayed away from the veteran community for 50 years. But now he felt different. When he attended the first meeting, there were about 20 Vietnam veterans. Everyone's story was different, but they all had a common point: the difficulty of returning home. Robert, you were a combat medic. One of the toughest jobs, said veteran Al Patterson. Everyone's job was tough, Robert said. I was just trying to save my friends. How many people did you save in total? Robert thought. According to official records, 197. But somewhere off the record, the veterans fell silent. 197 people. This was an enormous number. You're a legend, Robert, David Morrison said, and we're proud of you. Robert decided to start a special project in memory of Linda. He wanted to provide first aid and emergency response training in the neighborhood. If I hadn't been there, those children would have had to wait until the ambulance arrived, Robert said at the neighborhood meeting. But if everyone knew basic first aid, we could save more lives. The neighbors loved this idea. Robert began giving free first aid lessons every Saturday at the community center. 15 people attended the first lesson. 30 attended the second. 50 people came to the third lesson. Robert taught everything from basic first aid to CPR, wound care, shock management, emergency childbirth. First rule, he said in every lesson: don't panic. Stay calm, because a calm person saves lives. In one of the lessons, little Emma also came with her mother. When she saw Robert, she ran to him. Mr. Chen, you're the man who saved me. Robert hugged Emma. Hello, beautiful. How are you? I'm fine. Mom told me that Mr. Chen is a very good doctor. I'm not a doctor, Emma. I'm an electrician. But like a doctor, you're a superhero. Robert smiled. This 3-year-old girl's sincere love was healing his 50-year-old wound. After returning from Vietnam, Robert had never gone to a therapist. He had tried to cope with PTSD on his own, but Emma's innocent love and the neighborhood's respect gave him the courage to face his past. One night, sitting in the hidden compartment in his garage, he was examining old medical supplies. 50-year-old bandages, old sterile packages, rusty surgical instruments. He had renewed everything, but somehow couldn't throw them away. Why am I keeping these, he thought. He actually knew the answer. Because these supplies were part of his identity. Combat medic Robert Chen couldn't be separated from electrician Robert Chen. He looked at Linda's photograph. Linda, you were always right. I really heal people, not with electricity, but with my heart. Robert no longer hid his secret past, but he wasn't bragging about it either. He just used it when necessary. When there was a medical emergency in the neighborhood, people called Robert. Heart attack, choking, falling cuts. In every situation, calm, professional approach. Mr. Chen, his neighbor Jennifer said one day, "You're this neighborhood's guardian angel." Robert smiled. I'm just a neighbor. I help my friends. Friend, say? Yes, you're all my family. And family doesn't give up on each other. In one of the first aid lessons, a teenage girl asked, Mr. Chen, were you scared in the war? Robert hesitated. No one had ever asked this question. Yes, he finally said. I was always scared. But you still save people. Yes, because overcoming fear isn't courage. Doing the right thing even while scared is courage. How did you do it? Robert thought. I stopped thinking about myself. I only thought about people who needed help. Then the fear disappeared. This answer affected not only that teenager, but everyone in the lesson. March 15th, 2024, exactly 1 year later. Robert was standing at that famous intersection, remembering the memories. The accident scene had been completely cleaned. Normal traffic continued. But for Robert, That corner was a turning point in his life. Mr. Chen! He turned around. Jake was running toward him, now 13 years old, taller, more mature. Jake, how are you, my boy? Great. I had news for you. I started a first aid club in high school. We have 25 members. Robert's eyes lit up. Really? Yes. And they're all learning your techniques. Maybe one day we'll save someone too. Robert held Jake's shoulder. You already saved me, Jake. What do you mean? You gave me back my identity. For 50 years, I hid myself. You and the other children reminded me to be a lifesaver again. Jake smiled. You're our hero, Mr. Chen. You always will be. As Robert drove home, he could see the neighborhood from his pickup's mirrors. Electrical repair at Henderson's house, lighting system at Johnson's house, security system at the Martinez family's house. His touch was in every home, but his real touch was in people's hearts. In the garage, there was no longer a hidden compartment. Medical supplies were in a visible cabinet. The emergency kit was always ready, because Robert was no longer hiding. On the wall, Linda's photograph, Jake's drawing, the Bronze Star Medal, and thank you letters from the neighbors were side by side. The phone rang. Chen Electric Services. Mr. Chen, we have a medical emergency here. Can you come? I'm coming right away, Robert said, taking his pickup's keys. At 72 years old, working as an electrician, but his identity was much bigger. He was a lifesaver. 50 years ago, 50 years later, always, because real heroes never retire. They just continue to serve in different ways.